Hi, today I would like to show you a few tricks that you can apply to your text on a web page to make it look more interesting, to add some zest and make it more interesting for the eye. So let us dive in. I will show you 5 tricks that you can apply, and I hope this is going to be useful for you. Let's dive in. So here we have our web page that has not yet been formatted. So it's a site that we are making for an imaginary company called Top Foods. And as you can see, this is the homepage. And we have this nice image of very delicious food here, as well as the text where the company is claiming that they are the top foods restaurant, and also asking us to trust them, that they know all about foods. So when you look at this text, it is good, but it is a bit boring. And I was just thinking there are a number of things that we can do to add some life to it and make it more interesting to look at. So let us look at the back end of this web page. As you can see, we have our page, which is very basic. It has nothing apart from just the text that we looked at. So you can see here at the top, we have the header section, and this header section is a div, and we have the logo there. Then as we go down, we have this container, which is basically the wrapper for all the content that we have on the page. And then after that, we have the header message. So this is the message that we are seeing here, together with this one. So basically all this is a header message. And one of the key things that I would like you to see is we have some spans inside. So these spans are to help us to style individual text elements separately. So as you can see here, we are top, but the letter T here is inside a span that has the ID of T. And then we have foods, and for the foods, the whole word foods is within a span, and then restaurant is also within a span. So like I've said, this is going to allow us later, which I'm going to show you, to style those elements individually. So let us go to the CSS. So the CSS so far is like this. So we have removed the margin and the padding on everything, and then we have styled the header section. We have styled the H1 text that is within the header section. The food banner. The food banner is basically the div. Let's look at it. The food banner. So the food banner is the div that contains the image for the food. Then we have we are targeting the image here, the image of the plate of food. And then down here, we then format all our H1s on the page, all our H2s on the page. And then this is our container. As you can see, we are displaying things as flex. And the whole idea is so that we can be able to lay out the items that are within it in an easier way using flex. So that is how the current web page looks like. As you can see, it's here. Now I want us to go into the 5 small tricks that I would like to show you that we can use to make this text a bit more interesting. Let us dive in. Woohoo! So now our first item, we are going to style this letter here, T. So T, as we have seen, is in a span of its own, and the span has an ID of T. So this is the span that we are going to target in our CSS. So we are going to come and type span and then of ID T. That is what we are targeting. And then we want to give it a background. So we want to give it a background of this color here, 079632. Okay, sorry. The other thing that we would like is to have a padding, and we are going to give it a padding of 0 at the top, and then 10 pixels left and right. Then we change the font color, and we are going to have the font color being white. Then the font weight, we would like a large font weight of 900, and then we would like also to rotate that letter T together with the span that it is in, and to rotate we are going to say transform rotate. We are going to rotate clockwise 15 degrees. Good. So now let us have a look and see how it looks, and I'm going to view using this plugin called Live Server, very good on Visual Studio Code. So this is how it looks. You can see our rotation did not happen. And why didn't our rotation happen? The reason why our rotation did not happen is because we needed to display this item as a block item. So what I'm going to do is to say display as inline block. Because it's an inline element, a span is inline within the text, then I just want to give it some block properties so that I can be able to do things like rotation. So when we do that, then it turns. How does that look? That looks much better than what we had with the plain text. So that is the end of the first tip and trick which you can use to make your text look more interesting. As you can see now, when you look at this page, the text looks much better to the eye. Good. Now I would like us to go to the next tip, and the next tip we are going to call it brushing the background. That is the name I have given it. And what we are going to do, we are going to create a background on this word foods, a background that looks like some paint was brushed behind the background. So I'll go ahead and first comment what we have just done for the T, so that we restore everything to what it was before. And now when you look, our page is back to what it was before. Now for this new trick, what we are going to do is we are going to be targeting the word foods, and you can see foods is within the span that has the ID F. So in that case, we are going to be targeting the F span. So I'm going to say span with ID of F, and then the other thing that I want us to do now for this one, the way we want it to look, we are going to use a pseudo element. I'll show you how that works. So we are going to target the span, and Then we are going to put content after that span. So we are going to revisit the span itself, but most of the work we are going to do within the after, in the pseudo element that we are going to create after the element. So this pseudo element of ours will have no content, so content is blank. We are going to give it a background. We're going to give it a background. The background, we're going to give a color of D3 E9C. That's the background we are going to give it. The next thing is we are going to give it a width, and this width will be calculated. So we are going to do width will be 100% of that span plus 6 pixels. Sorry, 100% plus 6 pixels, and then we are going to give it a height. We are going to give it a height of 50%, and then we are going to position this item absolutely. Then the top position is going to be 55% of the parent. The left is going to be 0. So as you can see, our page has gone crazy. Everything has gotten messed up. Now we need to fix this. So what is happening is we are positioning this item absolutely, but we want it to be positioned absolutely within the span that contains it, or the span that it comes after. So for that to happen, we need to make sure that the positioning of the span within the span is relative. So that should fix the problem. Now we are getting there. So we can see the small box that we are trying to put here, but it doesn't look good because it's in front of the text. So what we do is we to apply this property called z-index, of -1. Now it's behind and it really looks good. Now what we can do to make it even look better, we can apply some small rotation. So what we're going to do here is to do a transform, rotate, then we do -6 degrees. So when we put a minus, then we are rotating anti-clockwise. -6, yes. So that is our trick number 2. It looks cool, isn't it? Now the page looks much better to look at because of this small painting that we have done on the word foods. Good. Now we are going to go to our third trick. So again, we comment everything. To return everything to where it was. And our third trick, we are going to create a background on one of the words. And so this background that we are going to create, we are going to create it on the word restaurant. So restaurant is within the span with ID R, and we want to create a background on it. Sorry, my computer is a bit slow. So here we are going to target the span of the ID R, and we are going to give it a background. The background is going to be F04 909. Okay, let's see. So that's how it looks, but we want to modify it to make it look better. So we are going to change the color of the font, and we are going to make it white. We are going to do a padding, to give it a padding of 5 pixels. And then we are going to display this as an inline. Inline block. Like we saw in the earlier example, this is going to help us do things like rotation. And then we're going to make it look better by doing a rotation. So we do a transform, rotate. We are going to rotate -4 degrees. That is 4 degrees anti-clockwise. And then we change the line height of the text. To 120%. It looks much better, isn't it? Now we can add something more. So I would like to drop a box shadow. 3 pixels horizontal offset, 3 pixels vertical offset, 7 pixels blurring, and we want our shadow to be of this color. So that is striking. So that is our third trick. How do you like it? As usual, we go back and comment our code to return it to how it was. And we are going to do our fourth trick. And our fourth trick, we want to add a small line on top of the heading here. So the way we are going to do this, again, we are going to use a pseudo element, and here we are going to target this div that is called header message, and we are targeting the h1. So after the h1, we want to create a pseudo element. Content is blank. The background is E90 C0C. Then we're going to give it a width of 15%. So it's 15% of the heading. And then a height of 9 pixels, and then we are going to position it absolutely. We want it to be at the top, so 0, and at the edge of the heading. We are positioning this item absolutely, but we want it to appear within the heading. So we need the heading to have relative positioning, and up there we have the H1. So what we're going to do is we will come to H1 and set position to relative. So it's not showing. Let's check what is the problem. My bad. Here is supposed to be width, not widths. So again, there is our small trick. By just putting that line on top of the text, it makes it look more interesting. And finally, we are going to go to our fifth trick, which is very similar to the fourth one. And what we are going to do this time around, we are going to put a dot next to the heading, a big dot. So just like the previous example, we are going to target the H1, and then we create a pseudo element after. So with no content, and then our background. Our background we are going to put E9 D A 0C. Okay. Width 100 pixels. Height of 50%. And then we're also going to position it absolute. Remember, this is going to be inside the H1 element, and in the previous example we already set the positioning of the H1 to relative, so this should work without a problem. And then we set a border radius of 50 pixels. Then we want to position this item top at 15 pixels and left, we want it to the left of the text. We are going to do that at 120 pixels negative, so it should be outside the text to the left. Okay, let us see what we have now. Woohoo! This also looks cool, isn't it? So again, our very boring text has been transformed and now it looks much better. So those are our 5 tips on how we can make our text more interesting. I hope you have learned something. Please let me know in the comments whether you like this tutorial and whether you have learned something. Thank you very much.